Welcome to the 411 podcast. I'm here with your president-elect and my co-host, Sam Olson.
And I'm here with your president and my co-host, Garrett Lepire.
And I'm Ken Lund. I'm a Washoe director for Sierra Nevada Realtors, and I'm here.
Ken is here. We were going to introduce him, but Ken introduced himself, so we're going to run with that.
Fun fact, Ken was in the hallway as we were walking in to record this. And we're like, Ken, come on board.
I said, that's great.
Yeah. Look at that.
Good company.
Realtors are always prepared.
You got to think on your feet. That's professional.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So, Ken, you were elected in the last election last year in 2025 as a Washoe director.
Yeah.
So, and that's a 2-year term, and you're about 6 months. We'll call it 6 months into that term. What have you learned? What do you think about board work so far?
I find a lot of meaning and growth the more that I connect with other people, especially other people that have a passion for improving the profession, for elevating the level of practice in our profession. And that's something, one of my soapboxes is I feel like real estate is a profession. I was in a sales meeting, like a sales training a few years ago. And the sales trainer, who was very, very good, she felt strongly that it's an industry. And there's truth to that, right? I mean, because when you think about industry, you think about production, and you have to have systems and organization, and you have to have goals and objectives because you're building something, you're building your business.
Right.
And so there is truth. But I find that in my experience in real estate, we as real estate practitioners have a lot more in common with lawyers, with doctors, with people that are considered professionals in the kind of advice we give to clients in really high stakes situations. Mm-hmm. So, and so I feel like my work on the board in working with other people who feel about the profession like I do and want to elevate all of our practices among the 3,500 to 4,000 members that we have in our organization is really important.
Yep. Agreed. And I love that group of people you put us in with. It's a whole lot better than being lumped in with used car salesmen as we get all the time. I agree with you. You know, what we do is serious business. And I think the more serious that you take this business, it doesn't mean you have to take yourself seriously. It means you take the business seriously. And it's okay to have fun and be a goofball here and there. But you're helping people with the biggest transaction that they're going to probably ever deal with financially wise. And taking that serious is important.
Yeah. Now, Ken, I want to ask you a little bit about yourself. You're well known in the community. You're well spoken on the board. Tell us a little bit about your journey in real estate. What have you done in the past?
Yeah, so I grew up in real estate. My father, when I was born, he was a milkman in Sparks, Nevada.
Awesome.
And then he had an opportunity to jump into real estate. And, you know, did pretty well for himself and started Ferrari-led real estate and grew into a big brokerage. So I grew up with that. But when I graduated from high school, I said, I'm done with Reno. I'm going to go out to greener pastures. So I went away to school. But I wanted to be an attorney. And that's what I ended up doing. I practiced law in Las Vegas. I was in the legal profession between clerking for judges and practicing as an attorney for about a decade. Mm-hmm. And then in 2015, my wife had this epiphany. What if we were to move back to Reno, which is where she wanted to be anyways, and went into real estate together. And we explored for about 3 months and pulled the trigger. But after 11 years of processing the why behind all of that, I realized that the reason I was interested in law practice in the first place was listening to all of my father's broker conversations. And we just would be out doing stuff, and he'd always be on the phone, whether it was talking to agents or clients or whatever. And I wanted to be able to have the kind of complex conversations he was having about pretty complicated issues in high stakes things. I wanted that level of sophistication that I perceived that he had. So it took me a while to realize that I was destined for real estate all along, and law was just a route to help me get there and be ready for it.
So with those two careers, what kind of overlap do you see between the law profession and the real estate profession?
Well, a question I get asked all the time, well, do you miss practicing law? I said, well, shoot, I feel like I practice as much law in real estate as I did practicing law. I keep my law license active just to make sure I don't get in trouble if I start to get over my skis and fall into old habits with the advice that I dole out. But there's a ton of intersection in the issues, and real estate is just a different flavor of law practice. When I practiced, I was in litigation, which was all courtroom and dispute resolution. I am happy that I don't have as much dispute resolution now, but in litigation, negotiation is an everyday part of our job. Most things aren't resolved at trial. Most things are, have a settled resolution.
Right.
And so the insights I gained about negotiation in law practice, you still use every day. And a lot of it really does center around civility. I never subscribed to kind of the Rambo approach to law. I found that relationships and the ability to understand the other side's needs, desires, and position, as long as really having a firm understanding of, your client's needs, desires, and what was important to them, and being able to bridge the divide between the two sides goes a lot more than, kind of a zero sum win at all costs.
Correct.
How many people in your law practice actually, there was a clear winner and a clear loser? Probably not that many. Negotiation falls within that middle most of the time. Would you agree? Or you can disagree. Yeah. It's fine. No one's.
Well, there's an old cliche, that in law practice, a good settlement is one where both parties are equally pissed when you leave the settlement table.
Yep.
And but everybody recognizes, in litigation, the cost of taking something to trial is so expensive. And as you go through the discovery process and see your strengths and your weaknesses, a settled resolution is oftentimes going to be the optimal resolution for both parties, even though, neither side gets everything they want or feels like they've been fully recognized and vindicated if they feel like they've been wrong. There are some times where you have to stick up for your client. It has to go to trial. Something really, really important is on the line and settlement just isn't on the table. And you have to be prepared for that and be organized for that. Okay. But most of the time, life is too short, and there's a way that everybody can get a lot of what they want if the parties are just willing to talk to each other. Now, I don't want to sound wimpy on the line. I advocate for my clients, and we get great deals for them. But
well, I think in that instance, you have a buyer who wants to buy and a seller who wants to sell, so they have the same goal of closing. And so I would imagine that those negotiations are probably a little less intense than some of the things you litigated. I don't know much about your Las Vegas past because there's nothing really south of Minden Gardnerville for me.
But you and me both.
Well, kudos to you for getting smart and moving up to the better half of the state and getting out of the law practice, but keeping your license. That's a great idea. Love that. As Washoe director, what's kind of your role? What's the job? What does a Washoe director do?
So I've been doing this for 6 months. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm learning from you guys, but really taking time to understand the critical issues and thinking forward. What is our profession going to look like a year from now, 5 years from now? I think that's an important element of board leadership, is being forward thinking, and what are going to be the needs of the members, and the buying and selling and renting and owning public 5 years from now. And when we have our board meetings, that's something that we have to think about. And so I've spent a lot of time familiarizing myself with some of those issues. I think being visible and building connections among members in the community. A lot of realtors don't know what resources are available through SNR and through NIR that can be really helpful and make their profession a lot easier in their day-to-day practice.
Agreed.
Lots of, I'll have questions from other agents, about, well, I'm trying to figure out how to value this property and how to deal with this. And I say, hey, there's white papers on NAR's website where they've done pretty high level studies like on just that issue that you can go and draw from. A lot of people don't know those exist. Yeah. What else? I mean, the community. A lot of the board work is overseeing the. How many committees do we have? 15-ish.
Yeah, 15-ish, right in that range.
So I haven't counted them, but having been on for example, what used to be the risk reduction committee, now the forms committee, the committee in charge of revising and writing the contracts that everybody uses. We have our attorney that reviews everything before it goes out, but a lot of it is member driven, and we're trying to create instruments that are useful in the world that our agents are living in today, and with the realities that they're having to deal with, that their clients are having to deal with. And so I really like that, because a lot of associations, it's coming from an ivory tower, and it may not accurately reflect, the realities of what the agents are dealing with in the situations that they're trying to disclose or make sure are clear between the parties when they go into the real estate contract.
Yep.
And so that's hugely valuable. And I've learned more about our purchase agreement and the other forms that we use by collaborating with the other members on that committee. And the board's kind of an extension of all of that.
Yep. Well, and that's where I first met you, Ken, was in forms committees, where we were trying to change up a few things on the purchase agreement. Buyer broker agreements were just coming into place at that point in time. Talking about the listing agreement that had a lot of changes that was done to it. And the fact that you have practitioners, people who are out in the streets day in and day out helping people buy and sell real estate, that are coming to these committee meetings and saying, hey, when I sat down at Bob and Sue's kitchen table, here's the question that I got, and I didn't really have a good answer for it. In the form, if it was worded this way, would it allow to not have that question come up? It wouldn't be so ambiguous. Or there's a better way that we can word this or say this or not say it at all within this contract. And it gets driven that way, and that's really important. And then to have a guy like Ken that has his law license behind it too, and to look at it from that lens that none of us are in there looking at it that way. Like you said, it goes to our attorney when it's all said and done. But I think you offer a really valuable perspective in those committee rooms when it comes to the forms.
Yeah, you really dived in and focused on advancing this association, because we say the association's been around for a while. We're in our third year.
In this iteration.
Sierra Nevada Realtors, it's a 3-year-old organization. So we're all working together to lay the foundation of what this looks like while we honor the past, but still look forward to the future. And so I'm personally very, very happy that you're in these rooms having these conversations. And then to touch on what Garrett said, these changes are driven by our members, by the folks watching. A lot of these changes are driven by their feedback, because there's how many people? A forms committee has like 8,000 people on it, I think. There's a lot.
It feels that way sometimes.
But it's not everybody. And so everybody's out getting new experiences. So I just want our members to know, if there's something about the forms that you don't like, bring that to the forms committee, bring that to any member of the board, so we can go in and start dissecting it and addressing it and figuring out how this is going to work now and also in the future.
We can't guarantee your change is going to get made, but we are going to hear it. We are going to discuss it. We are going to debate it and see where it lands.
And just to build on that, because I'm glad you brought that up. Usually we start looking at changes to the forms in about March of every year. And so if people have, they can send them in whenever during the year, but especially as we get into fall and winter, that's a great time to send in those. And every single submission gets read and reviewed and considered. It won't be thrown into the garbage can. The committee will hear it.
That's fantastic. Because we don't want to do 4 forms updates a year. We want just that one, and have it be solid. And the work of the forms committee and your work on the board are so valuable and important. So thank you. From me, thank you.
And I want to thank you as well, Ken, and thank you for coming on the podcast on short notice, coming in from the hallway. You did well on your feet.
Yeah, I just kind of like walk up and down Curry Street in Carson City looking for something to do. So.
Like, we'll guest on your podcast. He's building a brand.
I love it.
Okay, well, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right.
Thanks for watching.